If your tomato plant is turning yellow from the bottom up, don't pull it yet. Take one damaged lower leaf and look closely. If you see brown spots, that points in one direction. If the leaf is yellow but mostly clean, that points somewhere else. And if you see tiny pale speckles, especially underneath the leaf, the problem may not be your soil at all. That one leaf can tell you more than the color of the entire plant. Start with the spots, because this is where gardeners often make the wrong diagnosis. If the oldest leaves near the soil develop brown or dark spots, then turn yellow around those spots, and the same damage slowly begins appearing higher on the plant, you may be looking at a fungal leaf disease such as early blight or Septoria leaf spot. They don't look exactly the same. Early blight often produces larger brown lesions. Sometimes they have darker concentric rings that look almost like a tiny target. Septoria usually creates many smaller spots, often with pale or grayish centers and darker edges. But there's something more important than memorizing the names. Watch where the problem begins. These diseases commonly show themselves first on older foliage near the bottom of the plant. And because those leaves sit close to the soil, rain, and watering can splash contaminated soil and plant debris upward onto the foliage. So if your tomato has spotted, yellowing lower leaves, don't immediately reach for fertilizer. First, remove leaves that are clearly badly diseased or dead. Keep infected foliage out of your compost if you're not confident your composting process will destroy pathogens. Then look at how you're watering. Water the soil, not the leaves. And if bare soil is splashing onto the bottom of the plant, a layer of mulch can help reduce that splash. It can also help the soil hold moisture more consistently. But here's where the diagnosis changes. What if those lower leaves are turning yellow and there are no obvious disease spots? Before you feed the plant, check the soil. Push your finger a couple of inches down near the root zone. If the soil stays wet for long periods, especially after repeated watering or rain, the roots may be sitting in conditions with too little oxygen. A stressed root system can't function normally. Yellowing foliage can be one of the signals above ground, but the opposite extreme causes trouble too. Tomatoes don't like cycling repeatedly between very dry soil and a sudden flood of water. That kind of moisture stress can affect the whole plant. It can contribute to problems with the fruit as well. So don't look at a yellow tomato plant and automatically think, it needs more water. Check first. A yellow leaf is a symptom. It is not a watering instruction, and it isn't automatically a fertilizer instruction either. Because if the soil moisture looks reasonable and the plant is still yellowing from below, the next thing to look at is the pattern. Which leaves are changing first? Nitrogen deficiency, for example, can show up as yellowing that begins on older foliage because nitrogen is mobile within the plant. But that does not mean every yellow bottom leaf needs a dose of nitrogen. This is especially important late in the season. A tomato plant that has spent months growing stems, leaves, flowers, and fruit is not going to keep every leaf it produced earlier in summer looking perfect forever. Sometimes the oldest lower leaves simply decline, and this is where gardeners can turn a small problem into a bigger one. They see 2 yellow leaves, they add fertilizer, then more fertilizer, then extra water, then they start spraying, when the plant may have been telling them something much simpler. Those leaves are old, so how can you tell the difference between a tomato that is naturally losing a few old leaves and one that is actually declining? Don't judge one leaf. Watch the direction. If 1 or 2 of the oldest leaves near the bottom turn yellow while the rest of the plant remains vigorous, that is one situation. If the upper growth is green, flowers are forming, and tomatoes are developing normally, that is very different from damage that keeps appearing higher and higher every few days. Think of the plant like a map. If the problem stays near the bottom, observe it. If it keeps climbing, investigate it. And if large portions of the plant begin wilting or declining rapidly, treat that as a much more serious warning. There's another clue gardeners often miss because it can be difficult to see from above. Turn the leaf over. Hot, dry, late summer conditions can favor spider mites. Their feeding can create tiny pale or yellow speckles across leaves. Heavy infestations can cause foliage to yellow, bronze, dry out, and eventually die. Look closely at the undersides of affected leaves. Very fine webbing or tiny moving mites can separate this problem from a simple nutrient or watering issue. That matters because watering more or adding fertilizer won't solve a mite infestation. Same yellow plant. Completely different problem. And now we come to the question most gardeners eventually ask. Should I cut those yellow leaves off? If a lower leaf is dead, badly diseased, or heavily damaged, removing it can make sense. Use clean pruners and avoid tearing the stem. But don't turn this into a stripping contest. Healthy green leaves are still doing work for the plant. They're capturing light and helping support the fruit you're trying to ripen. The goal is not to create the cleanest-looking tomato plant in the neighborhood. The goal is to remove foliage that has become a liability while preserving foliage that is still productive. And there's another reason lower leaf management can matter. Dense foliage close to wet soil can remain humid and receive more soil splash. Improving airflow around the lower plant and keeping foliage away from the soil can help create less favorable conditions for some leaf diseases. But removing a bad leaf and removing the entire plant are two very different decisions. So before you pull a tomato that looks terrible from the bottom, look at the top. Is the newest growth still healthy? Are substantial portions of the plant still green? Are tomatoes still developing or ripening? And most importantly, is the problem manageable? Or is it rapidly taking over the plant? If you still have strong upper growth and usable fruit, a few ugly lower leaves do not automatically mean the season is over. Manage the cause. Remove foliage that clearly needs to go. Keep water directed at the root zone. Reduce soil splash. Watch the plant over the next several days. And protect the healthy foliage you still have. Because at this point in the season, you aren't trying to build the perfect tomato plant. You're trying to protect the harvest that plant is still capable of giving you, but there is a point where saving it may stop making sense. If the decline is severe and spreading quickly, look at how much of the plant is already affected. If most of the plant has become compromised, or you're dealing with a serious disease that threatens nearby tomatoes, keeping one failing plant may create more problems than it solves. And that's why don't pull it yet does not mean never pull it. It means diagnose it before you destroy it. Tomorrow morning, you can do the entire first check-in about a minute. Start at the bottom. Pick one damaged leaf and look for spots. Then turn it over and check for stippling, webbing, or tiny pests. Touch the soil and check the moisture instead of guessing from the leaf color. Then, move your eyes upward. Is the damage staying on the oldest leaves, or is the same pattern climbing into newer foliage? Finally, look at the top of the plant and the fruit. Healthy new growth and developing tomatoes tell a very different story from a plant that is declining from bottom to top. That is the check I want you to remember. Don't ask, are my tomato leaves yellow? Ask, what does the yellowing look like? Where did it start? And where is it going? Because one yellow leaf tells you almost nothing. The pattern tells the story, and once you can read that pattern, you stop treating every yellow tomato plant with the same bottle, the same fertilizer, or the same pair of pruning shears. You start treating the problem that is actually there. So if your tomato is dying from the bottom up this August, don't pull it because the bottom looks ugly. Check the leaves, check underneath them, check the soil. Then look up. Your plant may be telling you the season is ending, or it may be telling you exactly what it needs to keep producing. Tell me in the comments what yours looks like right now. Brown spots, clean yellow leaves, curling tiny speckles, or something completely different. Your garden is not failing you. It is teaching you. I will see you in the next file.